Hey, we're live again. We're doing a double whammy tonight. Guys, I want to address something that just happened here. During the live stream with Dan Pomerantz that I just finished from Rebel Grown, there was one comment that popped up that I decided not to read. I made an executive decision not to read it at the moment. And then we wrapped up the interview, and I showed it to Dan after we finished. And Dan said, "You should have read that, and I would like to address it." So we're going to bring Dan back out right now and give him a chance to respond to this comment. Dan, let's do it. Here, I'm gonna pop this. This is from Nader at 916. He said, "Well," and I believe at this point you were talking maybe a little bit about some of the difficulties with the CCP or something. I'm not exactly sure where this comment came in, but he said, "Well, Dan, if you don't like it, go back to California. How about that? Also, you aren't like most of us starting a new business. You've been in this industry for what, over 10 years? You are an MSO and have experience." And Dan, please.
Yeah. So listen, when you showed me that, I'm like, you should have read it, because can you pull it back up on the screen for me while I'm talking? Is that possible? I mean, so yeah. So okay. So I moved to Vermont I just want to address all this stuff and explain this if anybody has misunderstandings about me. So I first came to Vermont when I was 15 years old. I think that's 1997 or 1998. And I fell in love with Vermont, and I made it like a life's goal to somehow get out of high school without getting arrested anymore, and not getting in trouble. And it was like, if I could survive that at like 16, 17 years old, the goal was to come to live in Vermont and be more surrounded by nature and a better vibe and better environment. And so, I also started coming up here to get weed. And this is before 9/11. I would come up almost on a bi-weekly basis, and I'd come up and hang out with my friends, and I'd bring some weed back on the Greyhound bus. So my history in Vermont goes back to 1997. And then I moved here in the year 2000, June 4th, which was, I found out that I was going to graduate high school. I pieced out, didn't go to my graduation, and I was up here June 4th. And, that's when I first lived in Stowe. And then, I moved to California in 2009 and into 2010, and, came back and forth. Both of my kids were born here in Vermont. I've owned my property where I'm sitting, where I live, since 2012. So I've had this place for over a decade. My history in Vermont goes back 23 years on and off living here and visiting for 25 years. So it's like I'm a more of a Vermonter. I've lived in Vermont more than any other place in my adult life, and so I want to address that. Number one, I know that Vermont's weed industry is a big, competition of who's the most Vermonter, and it's really not about that. Then second, can you pull it back up again for me?
Hold up. And
California part. Yeah, so go back to California. How about that? And so here's what I want to say about that. Like, I went out to California to live my cannabis dreams and to like grow weed and do genetics work and meet really cool, like-minded people and do that, with a medical recommendation and not worry so much about, getting busted and getting in trouble. There's a lot of people in Vermont's cannabis industry that have experience in other markets in the West Coast, right? So you have folks that I know, who had their own farms. Did my internet break up? There's a lot of folks here who gained experience working in California, owning a farm in California. I could probably name 5 to 10 people right now that either lived in California, Oregon, or some other state with adult use or, medical cannabis, and gained experience, or they tried to make it. But you know what? Most of those people, I'm not saying they failed, and I'm not saying that I made it, but the only thing different about me is I didn't fail. When I moved to California and I'm out there in the mountains and I'm looking up at the stars from the West Coast looking east, it didn't feel right. And as much as I wanted to prove myself and do these incredible things that I got to do, the whole time, the goal was to get back to Vermont. After 2 years of being in California, I bought this property in Vermont and built out this recording studio and rented it as an artist retreat for people in a recording studio. Well, I didn't live here. But so it's like, basically, this person is judging me because I didn't fail completely and have to come back. I was able to establish a business and own a farm. Like, you know, I could have bought a farm anywhere in California, and I only wanted to be in one subdivision because that's where my friends were, and that's where I thought the coolest people and the best energy and the best history of the culture. And there's only 108 40-acre parcels. You know, they're very exclusive and hard to get. People were doing, it's a really amazing community. And so I said, if I'm going to grow weed anywhere in California, that's the only place that I want to be able to do it. And you know, I'm quite distant from it, you know, and I miss the time on that mountain and shit. But let's get it straight. Like, people are judging me because I didn't fail in another market, even though so many dozens of us in Vermont with, you know, operating in the cannabis industry here, you know, might not have made it. And what I really did, you know, what I did out there is I passed the torch on to other people who went to Johnson State College that I met through friends in Vermont. And 9 years later, they're running that operation and homesteading off grid on that farm, raising fucking ducks and chickens and fucking geese and their dogs and caretaking beautiful cannabis plants. And I get the opportunity and the honor of still owning that property in that 40-acre piece in a very historic part of the Emerald Triangle. So it's like, don't get it misconstrued, you know. And then about the MSO thing, a multi-state operator in cannabis is a term for these large kind of corporate businesses. And a lot of them popped up after Canada legalized cannabis and was the first, you know, big wealthy country to legalize cannabis on a federal level. And so funds poured into their securities exchanges from all over the world, and all these fucking big conglomerates formed, and their ideas were, let's invest into the cannabis industry. And a lot of those opportunities at the time were on the West Coast in California. Like, that's not the vibe of what I represent. It just so happens that I own a farm and I have 2 small cultivation licenses. We're very small. Our total canopy of outdoors, like 23,000 square feet. We don't even use our second largest garden because the market there is so tough. We focus on growing smaller batches of quantity, and we put very small batches into some boutique dispensaries, and then the rest is wholesale to distributors in LA. I've lost money on that business each of the last 2 years because of how volatile that market is. So it's like, an MSO is a company with a fucking board of directors and a CEO and a COO and a whole corporate structure. And guess what? They have millions of dollars and all types of funding to support growing their business, knowing that they won't be cash flow positive or profitable with what they bring in for revenue for years. What my shit is me devoting and in some ways sacrificing my entire life to just finding a way to make it and not end up broke and not end up homeless, and using this plant to do it. And then while I go through that process, as much good as I can do for other people, then I can earn that success and not failing. You know, in that time, I focused on building careers for dozens of people who own their own farms, own their own businesses, retired their fucking parents, have been able to do so much fucking good with this plant. So it really bothers me, you know, to hear like, oh, that guy should go back to California. He's an MSO. I just wanted to clear that up. And I love talking about this because this is what I've done since I was 13 years old. I talk about cannabis, and I'm very passionate about it. And so that's what's up. You know, if people have any questions with the intentions of me or my business, you know, I welcome that dialogue as long as it can be, you know, not aggressive, because I'm a very honest person. And generally, if people say something that isn't correct about me, you know, it's like, instead of acting immature, I just want to explain myself, you know. So anyway, that's what's up with that. Can you put it back up on the screen one more time?
Yeah, I'm going to throw it back up one more time. I feel like you touched most of it, but I'm going to give you one more crack at it.
I smoked some weed when we finished up. I hadn't smoked weed yet, and then I got super stoned. But
well, if there's anything else you'd like to mention about this
part, you know, it's like, also, aren't you, you know, here, can you put it back up?
Here, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so also, aren't you aren't like most of us starting a new business. You have been in this industry for over 10 years. So, man, I almost have to calm down to respond to that. You can pull me back up. But the way that I grew up was that you respect your elders, right? And so I'm fucking not that old, dude. You know what I mean? But my whole thing when I moved to California, and the way that I made it out there is I lived by the code, like speak when spoken to. When I was around someone who'd been growing weed for 30 years, who had like succeeded in supporting themselves and their family and not going to prison, I fucking listened to that person and I looked at what they were doing. You know, I tried to make observations to better myself as a person by paying attention to people who were successful. So it's like, this person is suggesting that because I've been doing this for 25 years and have focused everything every single waking minute of every thought. And while I dream about it, I shouldn't have an opportunity in Vermont for that reason. That's not a very logical thing. And for people who are younger or, you know, or getting into this new, I mean, I focused earlier on explaining that I want to see everybody make it. You know, we should be rooting for each other and helping each other. Like anybody wants to reach out for me for advice, like I respond to that shit. And for people who are new to it, you know, here's the way I feel about that. I do feel a certain sense of entitlement because of how much effort I've put into this in my life. But I also have a certain level of confidence about the skills that I have developed and the capabilities that I have to make sure that I can keep doing it, you know. And for people who are coming into it, you know, maybe not everybody is going to make it successful into the future, but what you can do is you can do your best to make sure that you stand out, your best to be disciplined and make sure that you add value to this industry, add value to this community, this culture, this fucking business, and don't be an opportunist. You know, it's like you shouldn't put your life savings or get a fucking mortgage or invest your money and start a cannabis business and quit your day job if you don't have experience of at least 5 years learning about this and understanding this. But so, you know, smaller, you know, inexperienced new operators who are younger, dude, it's like fucking ask the people with experience questions. You know, I want to see everybody have an opportunity, but I also want to see people succeed who are going to earn it. So that's all it is. It's an incredible comment that was made. And it's just like, when, you know, I don't want to say like respect your elders, but like that's how I feel when I'm around somebody older than myself, is I have respect that they've been on the planet longer than I have, and they have experiences that I don't. And so when they speak, I listen. But that's what's up.
I don't know how old that person is, so I can't comment on that. But yeah, thank you for your thoughts. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Because I really got to take a piss again and get out of here, dude. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and I want to say thank you for addressing that. I'll have to post these back to back, I guess, but I appreciate your thoughts, man. It's Dan Pomerantz from Rebel Grown responding to some viewer comments, and next time I'll just read that on the air.
Yeah, like that's the thing, man. And what I was saying is, you asked about my music. Like I used to go by the name Morals. Like my whole life, I feel that I've earned my ability to maintain like being alive and trying to like make the best of my opportunity by like, you know, having a good energy. I used to go by the name of Morals. And so like I'm an honest person, you know, I pretty much wear everything on my sleeve. And generally if people have questions, like I don't have anything to hide. I just want to answer them, you know? So anyway,
that's what I keep telling everyone. I'm like, just ask them.
Well, you know, it's weird for me because my whole life, you know, like I feel a little ostracized in this community because I got the type 5 and I have the farm in California, but it's like, it's literally like a nightmare in some ways because like I love Vermont so much and I was so excited for legal weed. And then this article came out about me in 7 days and all of a sudden people are taking stances about me and they're just strangers that I don't know. And I'm like, oh shit, these people think I'm like some like corporate weed dude or some bad guy or some shit. And maybe it's not a lot of people, but like, yeah, there's fucking dispensaries that are boycotting me because of it. And I'm like, and I told them, I'm like, yo, dude, like come check me out and like come to my house and like see how I live and like what it is. Like this isn't what you think.
Have any of them taken you up on that offer to come to your house?
No, well, you know, one of those guys, before they got their license, they quit their day job and they offered me for a job helping on the farm. And I was like, yeah, come in on this day. And the dude flaked and didn't even come, you know? So it's like, you know, and, but like I said, man, I'm an open book and love talking about weed. So.
Dan, you got anything else? I thought that was a nice response. And I thank you again for your time here tonight, man. It's always nice talking to you.
Yeah, no, we're good, man. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity to chat and good kicking it.
Cool. Well, here we go. The devil's in the details, guys, and the details are in the fine print.
Have a good night.
All right.
I hope I didn't go on too much of a rant
I
there.
didn't end it. I missed the button. God damn.
Oh, it's all good.